Okay, next we're going to talk about the LFO section. And, you know, I'm tired. I got to be honest with you. My gosh, it's so small. Why is it so powerful? Why has it taken me this much effort thus far to do what I've been doing? It's amazing. Okay, I'm not complaining. Look at this LFO section. Just look at it. Tiny little LFO. Here it is. I should be able to explain this in a minute, right? Okay, sure. It's just LFO. Okay, let's start off. The mod wheel controls the LFO. Let's listen. By default, the mod wheel controls the LFO, which by default is controlling the pitch of the MicroBrute. So it's kind of a traditional mod wheel in that way. We have the ability to control the amount that the LFO affects the pitch, from nothing to a little bit to a lot to crazy siren mode. And we have the ability to control the rate. Okay, so often vintage synths go to about right there as far as rate's concerned. Okay, and you're done. That's what you get. Okay, and you're done. But you're not done here because these designers are too fantastic. Listen to how far up this rate goes. That's right, we have audio range LFO, again in the MicroBrute. At what point is this going to be micro other than size? It has everything that you would want in a synthesizer packed into this little tiny delight. Okay, so do you hear that sort of, now it's no longer seems to be altering the pitch. It's still altering the pitch, but audio range modulation creates delicious saturation and distortion. If we bring that back a little bit, you can hear kind of the weird distortion going on, but it really makes that a very rich sawtooth sound. And here's the really weird thing, because up here in the oscillator section, the frequency of these waveforms has an effect on how these waveform modulations work. I don't know if I said that right, but just listen. Listen to what it does to the ultra saw. It's creating weird frequencies and all kinds of things. And we're only talking here about pitch modulation. So you have this, again, another timbral, a source of timbral variety, and it's just the mod wheel and the LFO and the triangle setting. Madness. Here, let's listen to what it does to the triangle. This is terrifying. Really? What world do I exist in where just using the mod wheel and its frequency modulation can I generate weird, bizarre timbres? Amazing. But yeah, so you have an audio range rate. Okay, now we're back in Siren Land, so I can stop freaking out. You have also in waveforms, we've been listening to the triangle wave, the simple triangle wave, and it's been doing that stuff. Let's have a listen to the sawtooth wave. And again, as we speed up the rate and go into the audio range, each of these waveforms will have a different effect on the timbre. That sounds different than the triangle we heard before. In a lot of different ways. You can see there's a pitch variance there, but you can adjust for that with the amount. Okay, with the amount all the way up, that's what the triangle wave does, or that's what the sawtooth wave. Let's hear what the triangle wave does. Some completely different madness. We also have the square wave. And of course, the amount controls the size of that square wave, the amount of the way that the square wave is modulating the pitch. So the more amount you get, the more the interval increases between the notes. And as you might imagine, that has quite an effect when we get into the audio range rate. People were only talking about pitch modulation here. It's amazing. And of course, these are affecting aspects of like we've had the ultra saw on. So it's not just been pitch, but even if it was just pitch, it would still be doing those cool things. But with the ultra saw on, and the same would be happening with any of these other ones, like for example, the triangle and its terrifying metalizer. So the square wave makes some pretty cool sounds. Okay, and that's this tiny little modulation section. Already, it's an incredible tool. We also have a sync switch here, which allows you to synchronize the modulations generated by the LFO to the rate of the pattern in the sequencer. We'll get to that when we start dealing with the sequencer. But, you know, again, that's a really cool function. Okay, we're not even done here. We're not even close to done. Why? Because we're going to talk about the mod matrix. Mod matrix has CV out LFO. That means we can take the output from the oscillator and the low frequency oscillator, which is actually not just a low frequency oscillator. This is not just an LFO. It's also a high frequency oscillator, although not super high. But, you know, it's audio range high. So even this label is a little bit misleading. But anyway, we can direct the LFO's modulation to the metalizer, the ultra saw, the sub fifth, which will modulate back and forth between the sub oscillator and the fifth generator, or pitch, which we already had. We don't need to really do that. We can direct the LFO to the filter, for example. Let's get it on something more traditional sounding. Okay, so that's a sound we all recognize. And of course you have the amount, the rate, and so what we have here is an audio range oscillator, the LFO, modulating the cutoff point of the filter in the audio range. And what does that generate? It generates the thing that the third oscillator on the Minimoog generates in the filter on the Minimoog. Fatness. Fatness is not layering two oscillators to top each other. Fatness is modulating a filter in a way that causes it to saturate. And that's what's happening here. It's a little bit overt, but that is a VAT sound. And this is a 12 decibel per octave synthesizer. So we're able to generate that with that saturation. And I don't even want to say, when you are, imagine what that's going to do to the brute factor. You're getting a multiplication of that saturation. And what does it make? This milky, freaking amazing sound. That is a fat sound. Okay, and we can also direct, we have a place to direct the LFO to the pulse width modulation of the square wave. Let's have a listen to that. off overtone. So you can hear the LFO modulating the width of the square wave, the pulse width. And you've directed it there using this panel, and you can control the amount by using the amount knob here. So if you want it really subtle, or if you want it really intense. And then of course you can control the rate. And you can mix it up with, like, add this sawtooth wave. That is a sound I've never even heard before. You can hear both of those waveforms sliding back and forth, and it's just amazing. Anyhow, but sawtooth is not the LFO, although we could direct the LFO to that as well. Let's hear what that sounds like. You hear that modulation? It just intensifies that sound of two oscillators against each other in a direction that kind of a chorusy effect, which is just amazing. We can direct it, the LFO, to the metalizer. Let's hear what sort of mayhem we can generate with that. Wow. I mean, come on. I am left speechless. This is why I'm so amazed when people like look at this and go, oh, it's diminutive and it's got this smaller keyboard. It's a toy. But listen to the sculpting possibilities. It's just amazing. Let's listen to what happens when the LFO is directed to the sub. It is basically emphasizing harmonics in the oscillator output, and it makes my brain just about bend. So if you had a way to split these cables, which you can totally do, and direct the LFO output into the sub and into the metal of the triangle, you get something like this. And these sounds are so unique in the world of analog synthesis. This sort of thing just really hasn't been done outside of modulars, and then even so. Sort of application is really unique. And yeah, so that is basically how the mod matrix works. You take your output and you direct it into the input of the section you like, and you control the amount in the LFO section. Also, you can control the amount with the mod wheel. And you can balance these two to a degree where you can turn this off and then do the amount you want, but make sure that it's affecting the outcome in the way that you want with this knob. And so the LFO plus the mod matrix makes for a really potent LFO in a really tiny package. And the fact that it's audio range and can be directed to wave shape modulation. That's right. The LFO in the audio range can be directed to wave shape modulation. And that is a unique application. It's a unique sound. We're just not accustomed to getting sounds like that. And we're not even talking, just now I had the overtone on, which wasn't being modulated. And all of these modulations that I'm showing you, I'm mostly doing just with limited oscillators. We could have all of the oscillators on, all of the various iterations of this single oscillator, and it just could be generating all kinds of incredible variation. And then, of course, we can start messing with the filter. This is not a toy. This is not a little synthesizer. This is a big, big synthesizer in a little tiny package, which gives you an incredible amount of functionality for almost no money.